be an evaluation of the Hangkai 3.6 horsepower outboard motor. I purchased this from eBay for less than $200. I looked at a lot of videos prior to the purchase, and there were some that really gave this a bad review. But when I really looked into them, I thought, you know, there's got to be something they're doing wrong. So I purchased it. I've run it twice. I'll show you that in a little bit. But let me go back to what comes in the unit and we'll progress from there. Okay, so what came in the box, obviously an owner's manual. Oops, sorry, I bumped the tripod. And it is has a lot of wording, but it's been translated from Chinese, and as people have documented before, there are some errors in the translation. But I was able to figure it out just by using some common sense. It does come with a container that you can mix the fuel-oil ratio. There was a handy funnel that came with it, so I used that to get the gas in and both into the boat motor itself. You do get a spare starter cable or pull, so I don't know what that says about it, but I've had no problem with the one that came with it, but I'll hang on to that. There was a little tool pouch, and inside that, spark plug wrench, a regular tip screwdriver that also reverses to a Phillips. So, not the best quality. I'll probably use my own, but I'll keep it with the boat. 2 hex head wrenches. I've used those. And number 8, number 10 on a little wrench. 3 extra, what are those, cotter pins or shear pins? That's probably a cotter pin. And then I believe it's been documented before, this is a little water pump. It is water cooled and it is a 2-cycle engine, so you do have to add the oil and the gas. On this segment, I'm going to start at the propeller, because the most important thing about this particular boat motor is that you need to put gear lubricant in it. I've already removed this pin. I just put it on back on temporarily. So it's pretty simple. This needs a little help to get it started off. There we go. Now there's a pin that could come off. So there's your propeller, and you can see the pin just goes across here, and the shear pin. And then you need to take it out. Then you use one of the hex head tools that they supplied, and you need to remove these 2 bolts. It's not very difficult to do. Now, I've actually already done this because I've run the motor a couple times, but this unit was completely dry, so I know one person was doing a review and complained because the unit broke. Well, they didn't, from what I could gather, it didn't sound like they put the gear oil in. There's 2 little notches on either side of the screw. You just have to look and find them. And you just kind of twist the screwdriver back and forth, and you'll see it kind of teeters. And once you get it kind of loose, then you can go around anywhere. And then the other thing I did is I learned you can just kind of twist and wiggle, and this will slide out and off. Now I'm using Mobile 1 that is 30 or 75W-90, and the email I received from the medical shop said to use straight 90, but this is full synthetic, so I thought that that would be okay. So I may try and check into it more, but I would think that would be, if anything, better than worse. Pretty easy. So there's no marking as to where you fill it, so I just covered the gears. We'll see how that goes. And then this does have a specific way that it matches up. You can tell the shapes match, the upper one. So just put it in so it matches the shape of the prop there. And then these just go back in. Kind of tried to balance the torque on this. Spilled out a little bit, so I have the oil on my hands. So I kind of go back and forth, kind of like you do lug nuts on a car. What I've also done is I noticed when people were trying to break theirs in a trash can or a barrel, when you put the prop on, then you have all that water shooting out. I just left the prop off. Now you do get a lot of airflow because the exhaust comes out here. So those bubbles come out and they do heat up the water. But I had very little spillage, and you'll see the bucket only goes down about 2 inches from the top. The other thing that you'll have when you're having the 35-to-1 mixture is you're going to have some oil residue that comes out from the exhaust and gets in the water. So that was a little bit of a mess. I noticed it catches on the outer rim of the plastic bucket. So that's working pretty well. I hope that that'll be reduced when I go to after break-in and it's the 50-to-1 mixture. Okay, this again, this is where the water comes out, or if you're at an idle, that's where the exhaust will come out. And I notice that because there's hardly any bubbles that come up in the water in the bucket when I'm running the motor. This is the same hex head that I used on the prop. This is pretty simple. There were some reviews that said that on maybe some of the earlier models this was not properly aligned, and you'll see there's a rubber gasket inside this, and there are 4 holes that the exhaust and water come through. They just exit through the one. So hopefully I'll be able to show you this pretty well. This just pops off. And there you can see the seal, and what I do is I just kind of take it off and reposition it. It can only go on one way if you put it on this way, and that's what must have happened because now those holes are all blocked. But mine was fine, and I just try and position it on there so it's lined up, but then when you put this on it must change. I don't know. Haven't had any real problem with it. So you just line this up. And you definitely do want to have the water being able to flow. So that's what that this black cover is. That's where your water coolant will come out. So I would tighten this, but I don't know that I'd over tighten it because you're dealing with plastic there and it's going to get heated up. The other thing in this area, you can see this, see if I can tilt, the engine will tilt down. This is what tightens and loosens your ability to move the motor from side to side, or to go in reverse you just spin the motor all the way backwards. That, it does work, but boy, you really have to get some good resistance, you really have to twist it pretty hard. So, but it works fine. So there's the choke, and how this works, on is the engine is on, the choke is off. So on means you're running the engine. Off is you've choked off the engine. So the choke is actually on when this says off. Also right under here is your bulb to prime the motor. Okay, I think I made it so you can actually see the little fueling bulb. And what you do is you reach in with your index finger and you pump that 6 to 10 times. Then your fueling bulb, I'm just going to push it a couple times because there's already fuel in it. Maybe 5 times. Well, I could feel a little air. So I did 6. I'm not going to put full choke off. I'm going to bat 3/4. And then on the throttle, there's not much room. It's about a, I don't know, 1.5 or 2. So I'm just going to do it just a little bit forward. And, put your hand on here pretty solid. And give it a short but quick pull. At an idle, the motor is not that loud, but there's no water coming out of the cooling system, just exhaust. And you can see in the bucket there's little to no movement, so the exhaust is coming out of that small hole. So you don't want to do that too long, I wouldn't think. During break-in, about 3/4 of the way through, I did have an issue where the motor backfired a couple times and stopped running. Through contact with the company and just checking different things, going through what it could have been, it ended up being something very simple. The spark plug was defective. So that's the defective one. I was able to cross-reference it, and the Champion CJ8 is the same plug. So I replaced it, started right up. I have not had a problem since. That was a little bit of scare early on though, but all is well. Because when you lift this up, you're going to have to pull the cord out some, and then this lifts off. So this is a little bit of a pain. So you just have to keep pulling the cord out, which I'll try and do here. There we go. Okay, looking inside the motor, housing's been removed. This is the exhaust system. This is your water cooling. I think this is the exit. This is your emergency shut-off or just your shut-off button. There were some reviews that said some of these things, these wires were laying on this exhaust pipe and they melted, but it's not anywhere close on this particular unit. You can see the motor itself. There is a cooling, air cooling system to it also, along with the water, but I think you need the combination of both. And the fuel tank. I'll spin around the other side. Here's a spark plug. This is your throttle cable spark plug. They're touching a little bit, but I can move that out of the way. I'll deal with the spark plug later. I did have an issue. I had a spark plug that was defective. And then your choke and your carburetor system. I'll see if I can take this off with one hand and show you what's inside. Once you get the screw loose, then it simply slides off. That's just a cover. The inside, obviously, here's your air filter. There's not much to it. I was kind of surprised. It's just a very small sponge air cleaner. So I would think that could be improved upon. And you can see the choke. That would be in the choke marked off, but that means it's on. You can see it covers the air intake. That's where the air goes in, and so it's just a simple plastic flat, not much to it. It does work fine. You can see your fuel lines going into the gas tank, and these you do need to, as I had mentioned on screen in my first video on this motor, do not use any fuel that has ethanol. It will deteriorate and rot out this gas line. Okay, I moved to the top of the motor, and you can see top view. There's a spark plug. So here's your piston. There are some cooling fins here, and here's that inlet cooling tube. Okay, to replace the cover, you can imagine if this was off, there are two flanges, and you can see that these go over it, so you just kind of tilt back, slide it over that, and actually that's back on already. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get the choke little handle to fit through. There's the slot for it. That time it fit right in. So, and then again, this little clip. I don't think this is going to hold up real well. If it stops working out, I may just put a small strap over this or something, or maybe add something else to that. But so far so good. I've completed the break-in on the Hangkai 3.6 boat motor. Run at 10 hours, and I have my 50-to-1 mix, which is what it can run on now. I'm going to go ahead and put just a little bit in the motor. Don't want to put too much because it's midwinter here in mid-north Indiana, and I checked the temperature this morning. It is 3 degrees, so I don't want to take it outside and run it. But I'll get it ready to go, and as soon as the temperature warms up a little bit, I'll start it up and we'll see how it runs on the normal mix of 50-to-1. And once I do that, that'll complete this segment of the video production that I've made. I hope it's been helpful to you. I'm retired, and this is something fun for me to do, and maybe it'll help you decide whether or not you want to risk a few $100s or a couple $100s on this boat motor. I won't use it very often. I'm going to make a inflatable raft. It's a 4-person raft. I'll put a floor in, and I'm going to test it out on that this spring. I'll make a video of that production also. And at that time I'll show you how the motor does out on the water. Thanks for watching. Okay, I put the fuel in. This is the 50-to-1 mixture. And I'm going to prime. It's empty, so I can tell that it's just air. At about the 5th purge, I can start to feel it. So I'm going to put the choke lever off, which activates the choke. Throttle about ½ inch. I will say, do not run an engine in a closed garage. I'll open the garage door as soon as I get it started. That could be deadly. And then I'll let it run until it's out of gas. I just put that small amount in. And then I'll prepare it for winter, and that'll be it. I'm hoping that you can see that when it's running, without the prop on there, it's just the exhaust bubbles that come up. What's coming out now is just steam, because I'm at idle. So that bucket worked very well. You can see the bucket is mostly full of water, and I'm not really losing that much when I run it. We'll come back up to speed now.